I'm back, and it's still like 91 degrees. Okay, I didn't get yelled at. I thought I was gonna get yelled at. Okay, so what was I saying? Oh yeah, Glenn, Maggie is about to lose her baby. That's when they got captured by the Saviors. At that point, Glenn was captured, so he wasn't making a big fuss anymore about anything. Oh my gosh, who's this coming? Oh, he's here for lessons. Sir, please don't freak me out like that. Some big guy with a guitar coming towards my car, and I'm like, oh my god, what do you want? Okay, so he wasn't making a big fuss about anything, not until he saw Maggie, and he thought, oh, I can just go up to her, and England's like, no, that's not how it works, you know. And then of course he ends up getting killed by Negan. I already discussed all that. That is the end of Glenn. I thought I was gonna miss him a little bit more, but no, I did not. Now, I had something else in mind. Another episode. Oh yeah, when Maggie meets Georgie. Can somebody explain to me what the hell that was about? Because I'm like, a lot of people were speculating about Georgie, and they were so wrong. That was back then when I would watch The Talking Dead also. It was always on right after The Walking Dead. And then I would follow this other channel that was always doing lives about the episodes from The Walking Dead so we can discuss. In fact, that channel had a lot of inside information, and they're the ones that mentioned that Carl was gonna die. And I stopped watching that channel for a while because I was like, that's bullshit, you're lying, no way. And sure enough, Carl died. How they knew is beyond me. They were getting some information somewhere, but with these channels, you just never know. You know, they act like, oh, I'm new here, I don't know anybody, I'm just hanging out. Yeah, sure. And then it turns out that there's somebody from the corporation or whatever, you know. Anyhow, Georgie, back to Georgie. What was that about? Who was she? What lady during the apocalypse goes around in a van with two other people that look like twins and is trading records? Excuse me? What? I do not understand that. Like, you're gonna stop me in the middle of the road while I'm scavenging for food, and you're gonna be like, do you have any records to trade? Sure. Do you like Led Zeppelin? Because I got one right here in my pocket. No, I don't have any records to trade. What? What the hell? Somebody please explain what her purpose was, because you only see her once, and that is in that episode. And she was on The Talking Dead too. And I'm wondering, usually when you have somebody on The Talking Dead, it's somebody that just died on the show, or somebody of importance, not somebody that came out in one episode. They missed the mark with that one. You know, I really feel like there was some unnecessary people in the show, and she was one of them. And I'm not saying anything bad about the actress, okay? It was the character. Let's make that clear. And there were like some episodes that were just like, why? I don't get it. Why? You know? While I'm saying that, I liked King Ezekiel. I get that his backstory was being a zookeeper, and that's how he got Shiva, whatever, the tiger. It really threw me off that he had a community of followers that kind of acted like they were in this role playing of dressing up like with armor and like crossplay, you know? And I'm like, well, okay, let's just go with it for a bit. It's protection against the walkers. But again, people, by now, everybody should know you go for the brain. Why would you need all of that? Why would you need all this exaggerated, scandalous gear and role playing if you know what you have to do? I don't get it. But okay, it's a show. I'm going with it, right? Now, I couldn't remember last week what the last community the group came upon, those that survived anyway. Because by this point, Rick and Michonne were out of the picture already. Michonne went looking for Rick. Never knew. She found him in The Walking Dead. But of course, then they had The Walking Dead, Those Who Live, and they go on there. Okay, I'm not talking about that. Those that survive, they get to the Commonwealth. Talk about another community that's delusional, because you have that lady, I forgot her name already, the one with the short blonde hair, that she's like the one, the head honcho there in that area, another woman, who actually thinks that she's running the show and is delegating things to everybody, and they have a court. They actually have a court. They actually have a, not newspaper, but something like a newspaper, because that's where, oh my God, what's her name? Connie, right? Connie, she ends up going in there as a job. I'm like, wait a minute. You actually have people working for their meals? Okay, I guess, you're trying to like make it work somehow, try to make it more like realistic, like the real world was. But you're forgetting one thing. It's not the real world anymore. But anyhow, and then you got her snotty son who eventually dies too. But then you have her soldiers, right? And I'm like thinking, this woman is out of her damn mind. Why are these people listening to her? Why are all these soldiers under her command? There are more of you than her. You're living in a time where you don't actually have that much time. And you're listening to this woman, this delusional woman, Delulu. That's what I'm going to call her, Miss Delulu. When you're listening to every command she's giving, why? I guess her purpose was to kind of like have order, kind of like what Deanna was doing, but Deanna was a lot nicer about it. Deanna, thank you. Deanna was a pushover. She truly was, But this lady over here, I mean, she really thought somebody appointed her president, And I don't even think the people had a choice. But she really thought she was president. And that didn't last very long. Of course not. But the fact that they would separate people, like when they first put the group in those, what do you call, I can't remember vocabulary today. Those train things, those train box things, putting them in there. And I'm like, well, how ironic. That's what Terminus did. And trying to break them down, and then finally interviewing them and putting them through tests and then training them to kill walkers as if they wouldn't know when they've been living out there this whole entire time. They made it this far, so why would you even think you had to train them? Giving them those uniforms to wear. May I ask where they got these uniforms to wear? I mean, you are in the apocalypse. Everybody was wearing those white armor-like uniforms, you know, but yet they had extra to give to some people of the group. And where did they come from? Where did you all have these made? Did you all take their measurements and send in their measurements and then they brought them over? Here you go. You know, here's your delivery. Did Amazon deliver them? I'm just wondering where these uniforms came. You know, and depending what chain of command you're in, you will get an orange one. The higher you were, you got an orange one, you know? And I'm just like, huh, really? Okay. How does this work? And then they had all this ammo, and they had all the pew-pews. Did you all order that from Amazon as well? Or did you make a deal with another country and they sent them over? How in the world did you all get this stuff? I would really like to know, you know? It was very confusing. So, needless to say, I think the show was onto something. However, it got ridiculous. And that's just my opinion. And obviously, I still love the show. I still watch it. I still talk about it. So, yeah, I do love the show. I'm not going to take away my feelings about it. But it's just that, you know, some of the writing, they missed the mark by far. You know, there was so much potential with the show, and even to keep it going a little longer. But they missed it. It's like they just wanted to end it, and they ended on a really stupid note. And you really didn't even get an ending. If you watch the show to the end, you'll realize, wait a minute, what? This is how it ends? And then, you know, you'll probably be like, or is it? Is it how they end? Are they going to have another one? But then you like realize, well, a lot of the people are already dead. You know? Some got beheaded. Some were bitten. Some were killed. What would be the point of continuing that show without your original cast? No idea. But that's when they came up with, oh, their bright idea. Let's have The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon. And oh yeah, let's have The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live. Okay, look. I mentioned before that I tried to watch The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, where he ended up on a boat, and then he like got swept up to the shore. He was passed out. He ended up in Paris. How did we get from Georgia to Paris? I'm Daryl. Did you take a Carnival cruise? I mean, I'm just curious. How did we end up from Georgia to Paris? How? I know in the end you took off on your bike. But did your bike get you halfway to Paris? Did you even know how to get to Paris on your bike with no map? Did you just lick your finger and put it up in the air like this and be like, yeah, Paris is that way? You know, like, how did you end up in Paris? How did you end up on a boat? Who did you meet? What captain did you meet and decided, hey, man, can I have a ride to Paris? Or, hey, where are you going? Where are you going in that boat right there? Well, I'm going to Paris. Well, I am too. You know, like, how? Okay, fine. You ended up in Paris. And you met that wonderful nun, who I still can't remember her name. Because honestly, that show, for me, in my opinion, sucked. I know y'all are going to hate me. Y'all are probably like, how dare you? I'm not going to listen to you anymore. I'm sorry. And you don't have to listen to me. But it sucked. It just had no point, no meaning to me. It just sucked. And that little boy that everybody was like, oh, the little boy, you know, and Daryl this, Daryl, that little boy. I never even got the point of the little boy and the nun. And then a lot of people were trying to put the nun and Daryl together. Yeah, no. And I think that the writers and producers of that show realize, hey, this isn't going the way we thought. Everybody liked Daryl in The Walking Dead. We're not getting the same response here. We got to bring Carol back. Everybody always said Daryl and Carol, Daryl and Carol, Carol and Daryl, Carol and Daryl. Well, not everybody said that, because I was always saying Daryl and Beth, but of course you all killed her off. But, you know, okay, so you brought Carol back. I thought, okay, now it's going to get interesting. Let me watch it now. Okay. At least it's somebody else that's familiar, right? It's another familiar face, another familiar character. This has got to be better now. No. It wasn't. It definitely was not. I don't even know if the season renewed. You know, I think there was only like 2 seasons. I don't know if there's a season 3. I have tried my hardest to go back and watch it from the beginning. On AMC Plus, they will show the old episodes. I've tried, and it just, I can't keep focused, because I think it sucks that bad that I can't even get through one whole episode. I think you would have to tie me to the chair and have me watch it in order for me to pay attention, and hope that I pay attention to it, you know? Hope that I don't start singing in my head or fall asleep or something. How could I forget The Walking Dead Dead City? Thank you. Somebody telepathically told me about that. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to get to that one in a minute too. The Ones Who Live. That was actually a little bit better. That one has Michonne and Rick, and how she reunites with Rick. That one made more sense to me. You know? The setup was more realistic. There was actually a purpose, and there was a plan, and it ended on a good note. I don't foresee another season. I think this was just like a limited series, if you will. And it's good. They reunite with the kids. Who the kids were with this entire time, who knows? You know, because when they reunite with the kids, they only show them and the kids. So I don't know if the kids were out there fending for themselves. I have no idea. But the important thing is they got reunited. And the realistic part to me for that series was that Rick was really messed up in the head. And with good reason. You know, he lost his son. He almost nearly died before he got taken. And then they practically MK'd Ultra him over here into thinking he's got to be a killer. You know, and it was just a really weird kind of off thing, but more realistic. And what was her name? Jadis? JD? I don't know. That lady with the weird haircut. Bad weird haircut. And the garbage people. That was really realistic too, because yeah, I can see that happening. I can see people living in a garbage dump area, protecting themselves with a whole bunch of garbage around them so that walkers don't get in. I could see that happening. However, I could not stand that woman either. She was an insufferable woman. And even when she became quote unquote nice, she was still insufferable. I was just like, please, like, send her off already. Have the helicopter get her. Send her away. I couldn't stand her. She couldn't even, like, she just didn't fit with anybody. You know, they tried to get her with Father Gabriel, and it just wasn't working, you know? And I'm like, look, there's nobody for her. All her people are dead. She's annoying. Helicopter, come down and pick her up and take her away, please. And they finally did. And yes, she does have one important role where she helped Rick get rescued. But other than that, no. She was a betraying, you know what? SOB. Because she almost got Rick and all the group killed when they were fighting against the Saviors. So don't come at me for that one. But anyhow. So everybody really liked Negan. And so the writers decided The Walking Dead Dead City with Maggie and Negan. And then of course, you have your women who are on the Delulu train and are like, and I'm sorry if I insulted you that way, but they're just putting comment after comment like, oh, Nick and Maggie, and I bet they're gonna fall in love, and da-da-da-da-da-da. If the writers do that, I think a lot of people will be really upset to the point where they will stop watching. Because these shows are not meant to be a reality series like Love Island. These shows are about survival. And yes, there is a plot story with them, but they are about survival, not who can hook up with who. And you forget that if it was your husband that got his head smashed in by Negan right in front of you while you're pregnant, almost losing your baby, that the last thing on your mind, even if you're in survival mode and you run into him out there, is thinking, oh, I want to screw him. I want a relationship with him. Do you know how wild that would be? How disgusting it is to even think that way. And you have to keep in mind of their character's role, their back history, their backstories. You can't tell me that you actually sit in front of your phone or your computer and you're actually trying to put two and two together and think that, oh, 1 + 1 = romance. You can't be that delusional. I'm sorry. You just can't be. There's no way. And don't call yourself a hopeless romantic. Because that's not the world we live in. We've never lived in that world. I don't know. That was something made up by those Harlequin romance novels. You know, they were made up. It's fantasy. You know? I know that when you fall in love with someone and you get married and you think, oh yes, it does exist. You do live happily ever after. Nobody, listen. In reality, marriage, it can be happily ever after. But let's be real. Marriage is work. It's not a romance novel. Never, whether you have a lot of money or a little bit money, it doesn't matter. It's not a romance novel. It is work. It's not like when you're dating and you get all these little butterflies in your stomach and this guy takes you out for a fancy dinner and you're thinking it's going to be like that forever. No. That is a once in a lifetime thing. Unless you make it a habit of dating all these guys that will take you for dinner. But no, that's a once in a lifetime thing. I don't know, like, I don't know how you all would make it, actually. How you've all made it this far in the real world with that frame of mind. With that kind of thinking. I'm trying to think about it. Like, how would I have made it this far if I thought like that? I wouldn't. But anyhow, that was just a little side note rant there. But I started watching The Walking Dead Dead City. I honestly didn't like the narrative of it, of Maggie couldn't find Hershel again, and he was captured by somebody that amputated his pinky for the hell of it, and it was by an older woman, very dark, older, witch-like woman, and the people that surrounded her were as equally as dark and demented as she was. And that's okay. Let's see here. That part is believable, because in a time and place as such, you need to realize there's going to be people like that, right? You're going to have your very vile, disgusting people, demonic, if you will. They're going to do whatever it takes. They're going to take advantage of the situation. And then you have the other people that just have survival on their mind and thinking, okay, someday all of this is going to get fixed, but meantime we have to survive, which I think is a more balanced, level way of thinking, right? But in this series, The Dead City, none of that ever existed. There were never any groups of just survival, of trying to keep things balanced. It was more of dark, just dark. And then it continued to get darker and darker. And I was just like, I'm not in this. I'm not following. And some of them were even, so when there was one particular episode that was so dark that it actually related a lot to Illuminati and elitist type of thing going on, like ritual type. And okay, my car turned off because it was time already. Okay, so anyhow, yeah, I forget that I can't have it on that long. Anyhow, it just got so dark like that I was just like, I'm out. Like, no. And I think even Lauren was the one that produced that episode. Either she produced or wrote that episode, one or the other, or maybe both. I have no idea. But it was just like, where did this come from? Like, what were you trying to do here, Lauren? Lauren Cohan, that is, Maggie. Like, this wasn't even you in The Walking Dead. You were never dark like this. Why would you bring that in now? Like, I understand that time has gone on. Things have gotten worse. They're not getting any better. You end up in another, I think they're in New York. I'm not too sure. I think they ended up in New York, from Georgia to New York, which is kind of more realistic than Paris, But, yeah, this was never in Maggie before. So why would you even come into a show like that and then let alone produce something like that? It took away from everything that where your viewers started at. See, how long have I been going here? Y'all are not even going to listen anymore. Like 30 minutes? Okay. See, the very first couple of episodes of The Walking Dead, season 1 and season 2, a lot of us fans, we thought of it as, this is our family. You know? These are the guys we would want to be with if we were in this situation. Because look at how they all care for each other. You know, they're all surviving together and they're doing whatever it takes to make sure that everybody's safe. And even when the new characters came in, as much as some people try to hype it up, because, listen, I never read any of the comics. But there were some people that did. And, hang on, putting the window down a little bit. There were some people that did, and they loved to go back and forth with the comics. And they were so excited when, ooh, Negan, ooh, Magda, ooh, the Whispers, ooh, what were the other ones? The Wolves. And ooh, this, ooh, that. And they were so excited, you know. And, oh, and the other character, Magda, Magdalena, whatever her name was. I couldn't get into her character. I really couldn't. But anyway, or the other one, her friend, Yumiko, I didn't like her either. Sorry, I just didn't. But anyway, for me, even now, seeing them all together, if I don't see the original cast members, it's not The Walking Dead to me. It's just not. Because they're not, these new characters that they brought in much later, they weren't the reason I started watching. And I'm sure a lot of people can understand that. They weren't the ones that brought me into this world. It was the originals that brought me in. It was the originals that were actually teaching me how to survive. I was learning a lot. The new people came in and they threw everything off. And I understand we can't start out with the same characters. Eventually, we already know some of them have to die. It is this time apocalyptic. They're gonna die, you know, eventually, you know, right? We already know that. We can accept that. But towards the end of the Walking Dead series, the writers, they really overdid it on killing off this person, that person, that person, that person, you know, and just throwing the whole show off. It was like they were trying to go out with a bang, but they missed the bang. It's like when you watch fireworks on the 4th of July and it's towards the end and they light up all the fireworks and you're like, ooh, ah, ooh, ah. And then the very last firework is, and you're like, wait, what? You're waiting for the big bang finally, you know? And all you get is, and you're disappointed. That's exactly how I felt with The Walking Dead. Everybody was expecting something bigger to finally come together, to end on a good note, but instead, they killed off a lot of the fan favorites. Just for the hell of it. Just because maybe, in my opinion, allegedly, maybe they were just thinking like, well, we got to give them some kind of shock factor here. You know, let's kill off this person and that person because the fans really like them. So let's just do it. And yet they kept Yumiko. Why? They kept Magda, whatever her name was. Why? I'm thinking about magma. from that Goldfinger hot magma. But it's Magda or something like that. Magenta, whatever her name is. They kept her alive. Why? Eugene, you know what? As much as a lot of people did not like Eugene, I was neither here or there about him. But he's actually the one that used his brains to survive. And he did a very good job at it. And it just made sense that he survived. It really did, if you think about it. He played his cards right. He played chess. He didn't play checkers. So it made sense. But the others, not so much. Why? Why didn't they just kill off Lydia? You were just going to have her amputate her arm because she got bitten and that's it? Why didn't you just kill her? Like, I think Lydia should have died. I think Lydia, when she had to kill her mother, or who killed the mother? Oh, it was Negan. I think Lydia should have been the one to kill her mother, and I think Lydia should have just gone away, honestly. You know? I think that would have been more of a shock factor than to keep her around with the group. Henry, a lot of people didn't like Henry. And they killed him off. They had him beheaded. The beheading, you know, I should have written everything down before I came on, but I always tell myself I'm going to write down what I want to talk about, and I forget. The beheading episode, I think they did way too many. I agree with Henry. I definitely agree with Enid, just clearly because I don't like her. But the others, I didn't agree with. I'm not sure why they had Tara beheaded as well. I think, honestly, I would have liked Tara to just go live with the Oceanside people. I think maybe send her away that direction, you know? But they beheaded her. All right. I'm glad they kept Laura. No, I'm sorry, I forgot. Laura gets killed too. I would have preferred they would have let Laura survive. But see what I mean? How they killed off like people that could have been important later on. Like they just didn't want to leave anything like to continue it. You know, like they really wanted to make sure this is the end. That's all you're gonna get. It's over. You know, and I'm like, why? Why not give us a little bit of hope? Anyway, I'm going to end right here because I think I've talked my butt off already. I've even given myself a freaking headache now. I will try to write what I want to talk about down in more depth. Because, yeah, there's a lot of things that just still didn't make sense to me. And if you all have any input, please feel free. Any disagreements, please feel free. That was my camera. But, yeah, feel free. Because I'm not over The Walking Dead. I'm just not over it. It was the best show ever, regardless of my complaining. It's not really complaining. It's more like changes that I wish they would have done. But, I still watch the show religiously, believe it or not. I can't seem to let it go. I don't want to let it go. I'm not ready. But, yeah, I know a lot of you haven't let it go either because I've been seeing on Instagram. Hang on, you all. Let me try to, my son's almost out. Let me try to turn this car on. It is getting warm in here now. Yeah, he'll be out in like 4 minutes. Some of you all are still doing like reels, impersonations of Rick, of Daryl, Rosita even. In fact, I saw one today where this girl went to Georgia dressed as Rosita, and she was walking on the tracks. They were showing the houses where everybody lived. It was really cool, and I'm like, I'm gonna tell my husband, hey, I want to go to Georgia, to see all this. I don't know if you have to pay for that. That's fine, but I want more information. I want to go on this tour to take pictures and video and all that. I think that's what I need as closure. But maybe not. I don't know if it'll actually close the doors for me or not. But anyhow, yeah, I just love this show. It's all about survival. It was never a soap opera. It was never a Love Island reality series. It was always about survival. So anyhow, thank you all for listening if you made it this far, and I will talk to you all again soon. Bye.